The dusty streets of Fort Kearny, Nebraska carried whispers that autumn of 1878, and Hannah Novak had become their favorite subject as she stepped off the evening train with nothing but a worn carpet bag and a swollen belly that announced her condition to anyone with eyes. She had traveled 3 weeks from St. Louis, her face pale and drawn from the journey, her dark brown hair falling loose from its pins. At 22 years old, Hannah had learned that promises meant nothing when spoken by a man who disappeared the moment he learned about the child growing inside her. Thomas had been his name, though she tried not to think of him anymore. He had left her with empty pockets, a ruined reputation, and a baby due in 3 months. Her family had turned their backs on her when she refused to give the child away, her father calling her foolish and her mother weeping as she closed the door in Hannah's face. Fort Kearny represented her last hope. A distant cousin had mentioned work at the general store, though that had been before her condition became obvious. Now, standing on the platform as the sun set behind the wooden buildings, Hannah wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The town itself sprawled along the Platte River, a mixture of permanent structures and rough canvas tents. It had grown around the old fort, serving as a waypoint for travelers heading west. The street before her was wide and rutted, lined with a blacksmith shop, saloon, hotel, general store, and various other establishments. Men in dusty clothes moved between buildings, their spurs jingling. A wagon rattled past, and somewhere a dog barked. Hannah clutched her bag tighter and started walking toward the hotel. Her back ached from the train ride, and her feet felt swollen in her boots. She needed rest before facing whatever came next. The hotel lobby smelled of tobacco and old wood. The clerk, a thin man with wire spectacles, looked up from his ledger and his gaze immediately dropped to her stomach. His expression shifted from neutral to cold in an instant. "We do not have any rooms available," he said, though Hannah could see the row of keys hanging on the board behind him. "Please, I can pay," she said, reaching into her bag for the small purse containing her remaining money. "I only need something for a few nights." "No rooms," he repeated, his voice firmer. "You might try somewhere else." Hannah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. "Where would you suggest?" He turned back to his ledger. "That is not my concern." She stood there for a moment, humiliation burning in her chest, before turning and walking back outside. The evening air had grown cooler, and she wrapped her shawl around her shoulders. Down the street, she could see another smaller boarding house, but something told her she would receive the same treatment there. For an hour, Hannah tried every establishment that might offer lodging. Each time, the response was the same. "No rooms, no space, try elsewhere." One woman actually told her to leave town before she corrupted the decent folk. As darkness fell, Hannah found herself sitting on a bench outside the general store, fighting back tears. She was exhausted, hungry, and had nowhere to go. The baby shifted inside her, a gentle rolling movement that reminded her why she had endured all of this. Her child deserved better than to be given away to strangers. Her child deserved a mother who wanted her, or him. Hannah did not know which yet. The general store had already closed for the evening, its windows dark. She would try again in the morning about the work, though her hopes were fading fast. How could she work if no one would even rent her a room? "Madam, you all right there?" The voice startled her. Hannah looked up to find a man standing a few feet away, his hat in his hands. He was tall, with broad shoulders and sun-darkened skin that spoke of long days outdoors. His hair was dark and slightly too long, curling at his collar. He wore typical cowboy attire: worn denim pants, a dusty shirt, leather vest, and boots with spurs. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were a clear gray blue, and they looked at her with genuine concern rather than judgment. "I am fine, thank you," Hannah said, though her voice wavered. He glanced at her bag, then at the closed store, then back at her face. "Meaning no disrespect, but you do not look fine. You look like someone who needs help." "I do not need charity," Hannah said, lifting her chin despite the tears threatening to spill. "Did not offer charity, just asked if you were all right." He shifted his weight, still holding his hat. "Name is Nathan Vance. I work at the Circle R Ranch about 5 miles north of here." Hannah Novak. She did not offer her hand, and he did not seem to expect it. Nathan Vance looked down the street, then back at her. "Let me guess. Nobody in this town would rent you a room." Hannah felt her face flush again, but she nodded, figured as much. Fort Kearny is full of righteous folk who forget about Christian charity real quick when it suits them. He said this matter-of-factly, without malice. "You got family here. I have a cousin, but I do not know where she lives. I was supposed to check at the store tomorrow." "That would be Martha Webb, who runs the place. She lives above the shop." Nathan pointed to a side door Hannah had not noticed, but she already left for the evening to visit her sister's place outside town. Will not be back until late tomorrow afternoon. Hannah's heart sank further. She had not eaten since noon, and the thought of spending the night on this bench made her want to weep. Nathan seemed to be thinking something over, his jaw working slightly. Finally, he spoke. "Look, I know you do not know me from Adam, but I cannot in good conscience leave a lady in your condition out here all night. There is a widow woman named Mrs. Patterson who lives at the edge of town. She is a good soul, runs a respectable boarding house. The hotel clerk probably did not mention her because she actually has a heart. Let me take you there." "She will not want me either," Hannah said quietly. "Nobody wants a woman in my situation. Mrs. Patterson is different. She does not judge, had some hard times herself." Nathan put his hat back on. "Come on. Worst that happens is she says no, and then we will figure something else out." Hannah did not know why she trusted him. Perhaps it was the kindness in his eyes, or perhaps she was simply too tired to argue. She stood, swaying slightly, and Nathan immediately reached out to steady her elbow. "When did you last eat?" he asked. "Noon. Some bread on the train." He muttered something under his breath that might have been a curse. "Right. We are getting you food first, then finding you a bed." The restaurant was small and warm, with checkered curtains and the smell of beef stew in the air. The owner, a stout woman with gray hair, raised her eyebrows when they entered but said nothing. Nathan guided Hannah to a corner table and ordered 2 bowls of stew, fresh bread, and coffee. "I cannot pay for all this," Hannah protested weakly. "Did not ask you to." Nathan removed his hat and set it on the empty chair. "Eat first, talk later." The food arrived quickly, and Hannah tried to eat slowly despite her hunger. The stew was rich and hot, full of tender beef and vegetables. The bread was fresh enough to still be warm. She had not realized how hungry she was until the first bite. Nathan ate his own meal, not staring at her but keeping a respectful distance. After a few minutes he spoke. "You traveled far, St. Louis," Hannah said between bites. "That is a long journey. You got work lined up here." "I was supposed to. My cousin mentioned the general store needed help, but I wrote that letter before." She gestured vaguely at her stomach. Nathan nodded, understanding without her having to explain. "Martha might still hire you. She is practical about these things. Good worker is a good worker. And if she does not, then we will figure something else out." He said it with such simple confidence that Hannah almost believed him. She set down her spoon and looked at him directly. "Why are you helping me?" "You do not know anything about me." Nathan met her gaze steadily. "I know you are alone and need help. That is enough." He paused, then added, "My mother died when I was 12. Consumption. My father took to drinking after that, and I spent a few years on my own, barely getting by. Folks in the town where we lived turned their backs on me because my pa was the town drunk. I know what it feels like when people decide you are not worth their time. Swore to myself if I ever had the chance to help someone in need, I would not turn away like they did. Hannah felt something loosen in her chest. I am sorry about your mother. It was a long time ago. I am 26 now, got a good job at the Circle R, a decent boss, and I do all right for myself. He finished his stew and pushed the bowl aside. Point is, I know you are probably scared and feeling like the whole world is against you, but it is not. You just happen to land in a town full of small-minded people. Does not mean there is no kindness left anywhere. Hannah blinked back tears. Thank you, she whispered. After they finished eating, Nathan paid the bill despite Hannah's protests, and they walked through the dark streets toward the edge of town. The boarding house was a neat 2-story structure with a well-kept garden in front. Light glowed in the downstairs windows. Mrs. Patterson answered Nathan's knock almost immediately. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a bun. Her gaze took in Hannah's condition instantly, but unlike everyone else, her expression softened rather than hardened. "Nathan Vance, what brings you here at this hour?" she asked. "Evening, Mrs. Patterson. This is Miss Hannah Novak. She just arrived in town and needs a place to stay. The hotel turned her away." Mrs. Patterson's mouth tightened. "I can imagine why, and it is shameful." She stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come in, dear. You look exhausted." The warmth and acceptance in her voice nearly undid Hannah completely. She stepped inside, and the boarding house smelled like cinnamon and clean linen. The front room was cozy, with comfortable furniture and lace doilies on the side tables. "I have a room available upstairs," Mrs. Patterson said, already moving toward the staircase. "It is small but clean, and the bed is comfortable." "How far along are you, dear?" 6 months, Hannah said. "Then you need rest and good food. Come, I will show you to your room." Hannah looked back at Nathan, who stood in the doorway with his hat in his hands. "Thank you," she said again, meaning it with everything she had. He nodded. "I will check on you tomorrow if that is all right." "See how things went with Martha." "I would appreciate that." After Nathan left, Mrs. Patterson led Hannah upstairs to a small room with a single bed, a dresser, and a washstand. Clean curtains hung at the window, and a quilt covered the bed. "I know you are probably worried about payment, Mrs. Patterson said gently. "We can work that out once you are settled. For tonight, just rest." Hannah wanted to argue, to insist on discussing terms, but exhaustion overwhelmed her. She thanked Mrs. Patterson and, once alone, collapsed onto the bed fully clothed. Within minutes, she was asleep. Morning came with sunshine streaming through the window. Hannah woke disoriented, then remembered where she was. Her body ached from the journey, but she felt more rested than she had in weeks. Someone had left a pitcher of fresh water on the washstand, and she cleaned herself up as best she could before venturing downstairs. Mrs. Patterson was in the kitchen, and the smell of bacon and eggs filled the house. 2 other boarders sat at the table, an older man who worked at the telegraph office and a young woman who taught at the local school. Both nodded politely at Hannah without staring at her stomach. "Sit down, dear," Mrs. Patterson said. "You need a good breakfast." "Over the meal, Mrs." Patterson explained that she charged $2 a week for room and board, which included 3 meals a day. Hannah calculated quickly in her head. She had about $20 left from selling her few possessions in St. Louis. That would cover 10 weeks if she was careful, but she needed work before then. "I am hoping to get work at the general store," Hannah explained. "My cousin mentioned they needed help." "Martha Webb is a fair woman," Mrs. Patterson said, "but even if that does not work out, there are other options." I could use some help around here myself if you are interested. Nothing too strenuous given your condition, but light housework and cooking." Hannah felt a surge of hope. "I would be very grateful for that." The morning passed slowly. Martha Webb was not expected back until afternoon, so Hannah helped Mrs. Patterson with simple tasks around the boarding house. She folded laundry, peeled vegetables for dinner, and dusted the front room. It felt good to be useful, to have something to occupy her hands and mind. Around 2 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Hannah answered it to find Nathan Vance standing there, his hat in his hands again. He looked freshly washed, his hair damp and combed back. "Afternoon, Miss Novak. Just wanted to check how you were settling in. Please call me Hannah." "And I am well, thank you. Mrs. Patterson has been very kind. She is good people." Nathan glanced past her into the house. "I was thinking if you want to go see about that job at the store, I could walk with you. Martha should be back by now." Hannah appreciated the offer more than she could say. Having someone with her, someone who seemed to know the town and its people, made the prospect less daunting. They walked together down the main street. In daylight, Fort Kearny looked less intimidating. Children played in front of houses, and women in calico dresses moved between shops. Still, Hannah noticed the looks she received. Some were merely curious, others openly disapproving. She kept her head high and her eyes forward. The general store was open, and Martha Webb stood behind the counter. She was a sturdy woman in her 40s with capable hands and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When Hannah and Nathan entered, she looked up from her ledger. "Nathan Vance. What brings you to town on a weekday?" "Afternoon, Martha. This is Hannah Novak. I believe she is your cousin." Martha's eyes widened slightly. "Hannah, little Hannah from St. Louis, I have not seen you since you were 8 years old." Then her gaze dropped to Hannah's stomach and understanding dawned. "Oh, I see." Hannah lifted her chin. "I wrote to you about work. I am a hard worker and I learn quickly. I can read and write and do figures. I know my situation is not ideal, but I promise I would not cause any trouble." Martha was quiet for a long moment, studying Hannah's face. Finally, she sighed. "Your letter did not mention you were expecting. I know. I am sorry for the deception. But I did not think you would respond if I told you. You are probably right about that." Martha came around the counter, her expression unreadable. "When are you due?" "December, I think. Early December. And the father, gone, not coming back." Martha nodded slowly. "Your mother and I never got along much. She always thought her branch of the family was better than mine. But you are blood, and that means something." She crossed her arms. "I can give you work. Sorting stock, helping customers, keeping the books organized. Nothing too heavy. Pay is $3 a week. Can you start tomorrow?" Relief flooded through Hannah so intensely that her knees went weak. "Yes, thank you so much." "Do not thank me yet. I am a strict boss and I expect full days of work. You show up on time, you work hard, and we will get along fine." After leaving the store, Hannah turned to Nathan with tears in her eyes. "I cannot believe it. I have work. I have a place to stay. Yesterday I thought I would be sleeping on the street." Nathan's face broke into a genuine smile, and Hannah realized it was the first time she had seen him truly smile. It transformed his whole face, making him look younger and less careworn. "Told you things would work out." They walked back toward Mrs. Patterson's, and Hannah felt lighter than she had in months. Maybe Fort Kearny would not be so bad after all. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said as they approached the boarding house. "Of course." "Why did you keep the baby? I mean, I am not judging. I am just curious." "Most women in your situation would have made different choices." Hannah touched her stomach gently. "Because this is my child. This baby did not ask to be born into this situation, and it is not the baby's fault. I could not give my child away to strangers, wondering for the rest of my life what happened. and I could not. She trailed off, not wanting to say the other option out loud. That is brave, Nathan said quietly. Most people would have taken the easy way. It does not feel brave. It feels terrifying. That is what makes it brave, being scared but doing it anyway. He stopped at the gate to the boarding house. I should head back to the ranch, but if you do not mind, I would like to come by again. Maybe Sunday. I get Sunday afternoons off. Hannah looked at him, really looked at him. Nathan Vance was a good man. She could see it in the way he carried himself, in the kindness of his eyes, in the fact that he had helped a stranger without expecting anything in return. But she was also a woman who had been fooled before by a man's kindness. Why? She asked directly. Nathan seemed to consider his answer carefully. Because I like talking to you, because I want to know how your first week went. Because I think you could use a friend in this town and I could use one too, he paused. And because I think you are one of the bravest people I have met in a long time and I would like to know you better, if that is all right with you. His honesty disarmed her. All right. Sunday afternoon would be nice. The next weeks fell into a rhythm that brought Hannah a sense of stability she had not felt in months. She worked 6 days a week at the general store, arriving early and staying late. Martha was indeed a strict boss, but she was also fair, and she did not treat Hannah any differently than she would any other employee. The work was not difficult. Organizing shelves, helping customers find what they needed, keeping the inventory records updated. Hannah's mind was sharp, and she quickly learned where everything was stored and how Martha liked things done. The customers were another matter. Some treated her with cold politeness, conducting their business quickly and leaving without small talk. Others were more openly judgmental, making comments just loud enough for her to hear. But there were also kind people. Mrs. Patterson came in weekly for supplies and always greeted Hannah warmly. A few other women, those who had known hardship themselves, treated her with gentle respect. Nathan came by every Sunday afternoon as promised. At first, they simply talked, sitting in Mrs. Patterson's front parlor with the door open for propriety's sake. He told her about his work at the Circle R Ranch, about the cattle and horses, about the vast open grassland that stretched for miles. His descriptions were vivid, and Hannah could almost picture the scenes he described. She, in turn, told him about her life in St. Louis, about her family. She talked about her father, a successful merchant who valued reputation above all else, and her mother, who had always been more concerned with social standing than with her daughter's happiness. She even told him about Thomas, though the telling hurt. He was charming, she said one Sunday in late October. They were sitting on the porch watching the street. He said all the right things, made me feel special, important. I believed him when he said he loved me, that we would marry. She touched her stomach, which had grown considerably. When I told him about the baby, he left that same night, just vanished. I found out later he already had a wife in Chicago. Nathan's jaw tightened. He was a coward and a liar. I was naive and foolish. No, you were trusting. That is not the same thing. He turned to look at her. What he did was wrong, Hannah. None of this is your fault. She wanted to believe him, but the weight of months of shame and judgment made it hard. The world does not see it that way. Then the world is wrong. As November arrived, bringing colder weather, Nathan's visits became the highlight of Hannah's week. He was easy to talk to, and he never made her feel judged. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, which Hannah appreciated as much as their conversations. She was not used to being with someone who did not need constant entertainment or validation. One Sunday, Nathan arrived with a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Brought you something," he said, looking almost shy. Hannah opened it carefully. Inside was a soft blue shawl, finely made and warm. "Nathan, this is too much. Winter is coming and your old shawl is getting worn. I asked Mrs. Patterson what color you liked. She said blue." Hannah held the shawl to her chest, overcome. "I do not know what to say. Say you will use it. Say you will keep warm." He cleared his throat. "Say you are glad I am here." "I am very glad you are here," Hannah said softly. Their eyes met and something unspoken passed between them. Hannah felt it in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the shawl. It scared her, that feeling. She had promised herself she would not trust another man, would not let herself be vulnerable again. But Nathan was making it very difficult to keep that promise. As if sensing her retreat, Nathan stood. "I should go. Just wanted to drop that off." "Nathan, wait." Hannah stood as well, moving slowly with her increased size. "Would you like to stay for dinner? Mrs. Patterson always makes extra on Sundays." His face lit up. "I would like that very much." Dinner that evening was warm and pleasant. Mrs. Patterson's other boarders had gone out, so it was just the three of them. Nathan complimented the cooking and made Mrs. Patterson laugh with stories about ranch life. Watching him, Hannah realized how comfortable he seemed in this domestic setting, how natural and at ease. After dinner, they returned to the porch despite the chill. Hannah wore her new shawl and Nathan had his coat collar turned up against the wind. "Can I tell you something?" Hannah asked. "Always. When I first arrived here, I thought my life was over. I thought I would be alone forever, that I had ruined everything." She looked at him. "But you helped me see that maybe it is not an ending. Maybe it is a different beginning." Nathan shifted closer, not touching her but near enough that she could feel his warmth. "You are going to be a wonderful mother, Hannah. That baby is lucky to have you. Some people say I am cursed, that no man would ever want me now, not with another man's child. Then those people are idiots." Nathan said it so firmly that Hannah almost laughed. "Any man worth his salt would see what I see. A strong, brave, beautiful woman who put her child first. That is not a curse. That is a blessing." Hannah's heart pounded. "Nathan, I know it is too soon to say certain things," he continued, his voice low and earnest. "I know you have been hurt and you have every reason not to trust. But I need you to know something. When I look at you, I do not see someone ruined or cursed. I see someone I admire, someone I care about, and when I think about your baby, I do not think about some other man. I think about how lucky that child is to have you." Tears spilled down Hannah's cheeks. "People will always judge. Let them. I have never much cared what people think anyway." They sat in silence for a while, Hannah trying to process the emotions swirling inside her. Finally, she spoke. "I am scared." "Of what?" "Of trusting again, of getting hurt, of letting myself feel." She trailed off. "Feel what?" Hannah turned to face him fully. "Feel the way I am starting to feel about you." Nathan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was rough and calloused, warm against her cold fingers. "I am scared too. Never felt this way about anyone before, but I think being scared means it matters, and I would rather be scared and take the chance than wonder what might have been. What if I disappoint you? What if the baby is difficult, or I am not what you think I am? Hannah, I have spent weeks getting to know you. I know you are stubborn and proud and scared. I know you work too hard and do not ask for help even when you need it. I know you cry at night sometimes because I have heard you when I walk past the boarding house on my way back from checking on the horses in town." He squeezed her hand gently. "And I know that you are exactly what I think you are, someone worth knowing, someone worth caring about." Hannah leaned her head against his shoulder, and Nathan wrapped his arm around her carefully, mindfully of her condition. They sat that way until the sun set and the stars came out, not saying anything more, just being together. The following week, Martha pulled Hannah aside at the store. "Nathan Vance has been coming around a lot," she said without preamble. He is a friend, Hannah replied carefully. Martha gave her a knowing look. Is that what we are calling it? That boy looks at you like you hung the moon. Hannah felt her face heat. It is complicated. Love usually is. Martha returned to sorting through a shipment of fabric. Just be careful, Hannah. Not all men are like that scoundrel who left you, but the world can be cruel to women who trust too easily. Nathan is different. I think so too. Just making sure you know that. Martha smiled, a rare expression that softened her whole face. You deserve happiness, cousin. Do not let fear talk you out of it. That Sunday, Nathan arrived with news. Boss is hosting a barn dance at the ranch next Saturday. It is a tradition before winter really sets in. Figured I would ask if you might want to come, with me, as my guest. Hannah's first instinct was to refuse. Going to a social event would expose her to more judgment, more whispers. But then she looked at Nathan's hopeful face and thought about what Martha had said. She could let fear rule her, or she could live. I would love to, she said. Nathan's smile was worth every ounce of fear. The week leading up to the dance felt interminable. Hannah worried about what to wear, eventually borrowing a dress from Mrs. Patterson that was loose enough to accommodate her size. It was a deep green color that brought out her eyes, and Mrs. Patterson helped her arrange her hair in a becoming style. When Nathan arrived in a wagon to pick her up, his face when he saw her made every anxious moment worthwhile. You look beautiful, he said simply. The ride to the Circle R ranch took about 40 minutes. The land stretched out in all directions, vast and open under a sky that seemed impossibly large. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. Nathan pointed out landmarks as they rode. A particular bend in the river where the fishing was good, a grove of cottonwood trees where eagles nested, the hill where you could see for miles in every direction. You love it out here, Hannah observed. I do. There is something about all this space, all this openness. Makes you feel small but also free, you know. He glanced at her. Do you like it? I think I do. St. Louis felt so closed in, so crowded. This is different, bigger. The ranch itself was impressive. The main house was large and well built, with a wide porch and multiple windows glowing with warm light. Several outbuildings dotted the property, including a massive barn where the dance was being held. Lanterns hung from posts lighting the way, and Hannah could hear fiddle music already starting up. Nathan helped her down from the wagon carefully, his hands steady at her waist. If at any point you want to leave, just tell me. No questions asked. Thank you. Inside the barn, the space had been cleared and decorated. More lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a golden glow over everything. Tables lined one wall, laden with food, and a group of musicians sat in the corner with fiddles, a guitar, and a banjo. People milled about, talking and laughing, and the atmosphere was festive. Hannah immediately felt the eyes on her. Conversations paused as people noticed her condition. But Nathan kept his hand on her elbow, steady and reassuring, and led her toward a group of men near the food tables. Boys, this is Hannah Novak. Hannah, these are some of the hands from the ranch. That is William, James, and Thomas. Hannah tensed at the name Thomas, but this Thomas was nothing like the man who had abandoned her. He was a young cowboy with a friendly face who tipped his hat politely. The others greeted her with courtesy, and if they judged her condition, they kept it to themselves out of respect for Nathan. The ranch owner, a big man named Charles Rawlings, came over to welcome them. He was in his 50s with a weathered face and kind eyes. Nathan, glad you could make it. And you brought a lovely lady. Welcome to the Circle R, Miss Novak. Thank you for having me, Mr. Rawlings. Nathan here is one of my best hands, works harder than men twice his size. You have found yourself a good one. He winked and moved on to greet other guests. As the evening progressed, Hannah found herself relaxing. The food was excellent, and while some people stared or whispered, many more were simply enjoying the party. Nathan introduced her to more people, always staying close, always protective without being overbearing. When the dancing started, Hannah assumed she would sit on the sidelines. Her size made dancing impractical, but Nathan had other ideas. "Dance with me," he said, offering his hand. "I cannot not like this." "Sure you can. We will go slow, just sway to the music." The fiddles were playing a slower tune, and several couples moved onto the makeshift dance floor. Nathan led her out and placed one hand carefully on her waist, holding her other hand in his. They moved slowly, barely more than a gentle rocking, but it felt wonderful. "Everyone is watching," Hannah whispered. "Let them watch. They are probably just jealous that I get to dance with the prettiest woman here." Hannah laughed despite herself. "You are ridiculous, maybe, but I made you laugh." They swayed together, and Hannah felt the baby move inside her, a strong kick against her ribs. She gasped slightly, and Nathan immediately stopped. "What is wrong? Are you all right?" The baby just kicked. Hard. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "Wait, maybe it will happen again." They stood there, Nathan's large hand spread across her stomach, waiting. Then it happened. A strong, definite movement against his palm. Nathan's eyes widened with wonder. "That is amazing," he breathed. "That is your baby in there, a whole person." "Sometimes it does not feel real," Hannah admitted. "But then moments like this happen, and it is very real." Nathan's eyes met hers, and the expression on his face made her heart ache. "Hannah, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I am falling in love with you." "Actually, I think I already fell. I am just now getting around to admitting it." His hand was still on her stomach, feeling the baby move. "And I know this baby is not mine by blood, but I do not care. When I think about the future, I see you and this child in it. Both of you." Hannah's breath caught. "Nathan, I know it is fast. I know you have reason to be cautious, but I have never been more sure of anything in my life." He paused, then continued, his voice firm and clear. "Nobody might have wanted you with this baby, but I do. I want both." "That is two blessings, not one." Tears streamed down Hannah's face. All the fear and shame and loneliness of the past month seemed to break apart inside her, making room for something new. Something like hope, something like love. "I am falling in love with you too," she whispered. "It terrifies me, but it is true." Nathan pulled her close as her stomach would allow, and held her. Around them, the dance continued, but they stood in their own world, holding each other and feeling the baby move between them. The ride back to town that night was quiet but comfortable. Hannah leaned against Nathan's shoulder, exhausted but happy. When they reached Mrs. Patterson's, he walked her to the door. "Thank you for tonight," Hannah said. "For everything. Thank you for taking a chance on me." Nathan hesitated, then leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. "Sleep well, Hannah." That kiss, chaste as it was, stayed with Hannah long into the night. Over the following weeks, as November turned bitterly cold and the first snow fell, Nathan and Hannah's relationship deepened. He came to town more often, sometimes just for an hour to check on her. He brought firewood for Mrs. Patterson and small gifts for Hannah. A warm pair of gloves, a book of poetry, a carved wooden bird that reminded him of her. Hannah's body continued to change as the baby grew. Her back ached constantly, and her feet swelled. She tired more easily, and Martha insisted she take more breaks at the store. But through it all, Nathan was there, steady and supportive. One evening in early December, Hannah was helping Mrs. Patterson with dinner when the first real pain hit. It was different from the occasional aches and twinges she had grown used to. This was sharp and unmistakable. "Oh," she gasped, clutching the counter. Mrs. Patterson turned immediately. "Is it time?" "I think so, but it is too early. I thought I had another week at least." Babies come when they are ready, not when we plan for them. Mrs. Patterson helped her to a chair. I will send word to the doctor and to Nathan. Nathan is at the ranch. Then someone will fetch him. The next hours were a blur of pain and effort. The doctor arrived, an older man with gentle hands who had delivered half the babies in Fort Kearny. He examined Hannah and confirmed that the baby was indeed coming. Mrs. Patterson stayed by her side, offering water and encouragement. Somewhere around midnight, Nathan arrived. Hannah heard his voice downstairs, insistent and worried. Mrs. Patterson went down to speak with him, and Hannah could hear the murmur of their conversation. A moment later, Mrs. Patterson returned. Nathan is downstairs. He wants to know if you want him to stay. Yes, Hannah gasped between pains. Please, yes. It was unconventional for a man to be present during labor, especially a man who was not her husband. But Mrs. Patterson seemed to understand that this was not a conventional situation. She brought Nathan up, and he came to Hannah's side immediately, taking her hand. I am here, he said. I am not going anywhere. His presence gave her strength. When the pain became unbearable, she squeezed his hand until she thought she might break his fingers. He never complained, just kept telling her she was strong, she could do this. He was proud of her. Finally, as dawn broke through the window, the baby came. A lusty cry filled the room, and the doctor held up a small, red-faced, perfect infant. It is a boy, he announced. A healthy boy. Hannah sobbed with relief and exhaustion as the doctor placed her son on her chest. He was small but vigorous, waving tiny fists and crying with impressive volume. His eyes were squeezed shut, and he had a shock of dark hair. He is perfect, Hannah whispered, touching his tiny hand. His fingers wrapped around hers instinctively. Nathan stood beside the bed, looking down at mother and baby with an expression of absolute wonder. He is beautiful. You did so well, Hannah. I am so proud of you. The doctor finished his work and pronounced both mother and baby healthy. He is a bit small but strong. Just keep him warm and fed and he will thrive. He packed up his bag and left with Mrs. Patterson to give them some privacy. Alone with Nathan, Hannah looked at her son and felt overwhelmed with love and fear in equal measure. I do not even have a name picked out. I was so sure it would be a girl. Nathan reached out tentatively. May I? Hannah nodded, and Nathan carefully picked up the baby. He held the infant with surprising confidence, supporting the small head with one large hand. The baby quieted, seeming to sense the steady calm of the man holding him. What about Henry? Nathan suggested. It is a good, strong name. Henry, Hannah repeated. She looked at her son, at his tiny, perfect face. Henry Novak. Yes, I like that. Henry, Nathan said softly to the baby, you have the best mother in the world, and I am going to do everything I can to take care of both of you if you will let me. Hannah watched them together, her heart so full she thought it might burst. This man, who owed her nothing, who could have walked away at any point, was standing here at dawn holding her newborn son and pledging to care for them both. Nathan, you do not have to do this. I do not want you to feel obligated. He looked at her, his expression serious. This is not obligation, Hannah. This is choice. I choose this. I choose you and Henry. I will keep choosing you every single day for the rest of my life if you will have me. Are you asking what I think you are asking? Nathan carefully placed the baby back in Hannah's arms, then knelt beside the bed. He took her free hand in both of his. Hannah Novak, I know we have not known each other long. I know people will talk and judge, but I do not care about any of that. I care about you. I love you. And I love this little boy already. He glanced at Henry, then back at Hannah. Will you marry me? Will you let me be a husband to you and a father to Henry? Hannah's tears flowed freely. 6 months ago, she had been abandoned and alone, convinced her life was ruined. Now she was looking at a man who loved her not in spite of her circumstances, but including them. He saw her son as a blessing, not a burden. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Nathan stood and leaned over carefully, kissing her gently on the lips. It was their first real kiss, tender and full of promise. When he pulled back, both of them were crying. "We are going to be a family," Hannah said, looking down at Henry. "We already are," Nathan replied. The wedding took place 2 weeks later, as soon as Hannah was recovered enough from the birth. It was a simple ceremony at the small church in Fort Kearny, with Mrs. Patterson and Martha as witnesses. The pastor, initially reluctant given Hannah's situation, was convinced by Nathan's determination and sincerity. Hannah wore a simple blue dress that Mrs. Patterson had helped her alter to fit. She held Henry in her arms during the ceremony, and when the pastor asked if anyone objected to the union, Nathan spoke before anyone else could. "This is my family," he said clearly. "Anyone who has a problem with that can deal with me." No one objected. They exchanged simple gold bands that Nathan had purchased with his savings. When he slipped the ring onto Hannah's finger, she felt the weight of it like an anchor, grounding her to this new life, this new beginning. After the ceremony, Mr. Rawlings hosted a small celebration at the ranch. The ranch hands had decorated one of the cabins that Nathan had been living in, making it suitable for a family. It was small but sturdy, with a main room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. Someone had even built a cradle for Henry. "The boys and I figured you would need some privacy," Mr. Rawlings explained. "Consider it a wedding gift. The cabin is yours as long as you work for me, Nathan." "I do not know how to thank you, sir. You thank me by being happy and keeping up the good work. That is thanks enough." That first night in their cabin, Hannah fed Henry and put him down in his new cradle. The baby was growing already, filling out and becoming more alert. Nathan watched them with that same expression of wonder he had worn in the delivery room. "I cannot believe this is real," Hannah said, joining Nathan by the fire. "A month ago I was preparing to be alone. Now I have a husband and a home." Nathan pulled her close. "You are never going to be alone again, I promise you that." They sat together in the firelight, and Hannah felt a peace she had never known. It was not the absence of problems or challenges. It was the presence of love and partnership, the knowledge that whatever came, they would face it together. Winter settled over Nebraska with force. The snow piled high and temperatures plunged. But the cabin was warm, and Nathan proved to be a devoted husband and father. He woke in the night to help with Henry, walking the floor with the baby when he was fussy so Hannah could sleep. He came home from long days working cattle to help with cooking and cleaning. He never complained, never made her feel like a burden. Christmas came, their first as a family. Nathan carved toys for Henry, even though the baby was too young to appreciate them yet. Hannah made a special meal with supplies from Martha's store, and they exchanged small gifts. Nathan gave her a locket with a tiny photograph of the three of them that a traveling photographer had taken. Hannah gave him a new shirt she had sewn in stolen moments. "This is the best Christmas I have ever had," Nathan said that evening, Henry asleep in his arms. "Better than when you were a child?" Hannah asked. "I told you, my childhood was not great after my mother died. But this, right now, with you and Henry, this is everything I ever wanted without knowing I wanted it." In January, a letter arrived from St. Louis. Hannah's hands shook as she opened it, recognizing her mother's handwriting. She read it quickly, her expression going from hope to disappointment. "What does it say?" Nathan asked. "My father died last month. Heart failure. My mother thought I should know." Hannah's voice was flat. "She also says that I am not welcome at the funeral or to contact the family again. I made my choice and now I have to live with it." Nathan took the letter from her and tossed it into the fire. "Their loss. We are your family now." Hannah watched the paper burn, and surprisingly, she felt relief rather than sadness. Her parents had rejected her when she needed them most. Nathan and Henry were her family now, and that was enough. As winter slowly gave way to spring, life on the ranch settled into a comfortable routine. Hannah took in sewing and mending from the other ranch families to earn extra money. Nathan continued working with the cattle, and Mr. Rawlings spoke of promoting him to foreman eventually. Henry grew rapidly, becoming a chubby, happy baby who smiled easily and rarely fussed. In March, Hannah realized she was pregnant again. The discovery brought mixed feelings. She was thrilled at the prospect of giving Nathan a child of his own blood, but she also worried about how they would manage with two babies so close in age. When she told Nathan, he picked her up and spun her around gently before setting her down and apologizing for being too exuberant. "This is wonderful news," he said, his face glowing. "Henry is going to be a big brother. You are not worried about the timing. Why would I be worried? We will figure it out like we figure everything else out, together." He placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "Another blessing. We are collecting quite a few of those." Their second child, a daughter, was born in November of 1879, almost exactly a year after Henry. They named her Lucy, and she had Nathan's gray-blue eyes and Hannah's dark hair. This time, the birth was easier, and Nathan was there from the start, never leaving Hannah's side. Watching Nathan hold his daughter for the first time, seeing the tears stream down his face, Hannah felt complete in a way she had never imagined possible. This was not the life she had planned. It was better. The years that followed brought their share of challenges. Money was sometimes tight, especially when winter was hard and work was scarce. Henry had a frightening illness at age 2 that required the doctor and several sleepless nights. Lucy proved to be a stubborn, willful child who tested their patience regularly. But through it all, Hannah and Nathan's love only grew stronger. They learned each other's rhythms and moods. They learned when to push and when to give space. They learned that marriage was not always easy, but it was always worth the effort. On their 5th anniversary, Nathan surprised Hannah with a small piece of land he had saved up to buy. It was just outside Fort Kearny, with a creek running through it and good soil for farming. "I thought we could build a house here," he said as they walked the property together. Henry, now 6, ran ahead chasing butterflies while Lucy, 5, picked wildflowers. "Something of our own, a real home." "This is perfect," Hannah said, looking around at the rolling grassland and the cottonwood trees along the creek. "But can we afford it? Mr. Rawlings gave me that promotion to foreman. Comes with a raise, and you have been putting away money from your sewing. I figure we can build slowly, a little at a time." He put his arm around her. "I want our kids to grow up with roots, Hannah, something I never had." They built the house over 2 years with help from friends and neighbors. It was modest but solid, with 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a front porch where Hannah could sit and sew, and a barn for the animals they gradually acquired. Nathan continued working at the Circle R, now managing the other ranch hands, while Hannah built up her sewing business. In 1882, their 3rd child was born, another boy they named James. In 1885, a 4th child arrived, a daughter they called Marie. The house filled with noise and laughter and the occasional tears. Henry proved to be a natural with animals, following his father around and learning everything about ranching. Lucy inherited her mother's skill with needle and thread. James was the quiet dreamer of the family, always reading or telling elaborate stories. Marie was still too young to show her inclinations, but she was cheerful and affectionate, bringing joy wherever she went. On summer evenings, The family would sit on the porch together. Nathan would play the harmonica he had taught himself, and Hannah would sing while the children played in the yard. These were the moments Hannah treasured most, when she could look around at the life they had built and feel grateful for every twist of fate that had brought her to this place. Henry never knew that Nathan was not his biological father. Nathan had raised him from birth, and the bond between them was unbreakable. When Henry was old enough to understand, Hannah sat him down and told him the truth gently, carefully. "The man who was your first father did not stay," she explained. "But the man you call Pa chose to be your father. He chose you before you were even born. That makes him your real father in every way that matters." Henry, 12 years old and already showing signs of becoming as tall as Nathan, thought about this seriously. Then he said, "I know. Pa told me years ago. He said he wanted me to hear it from him first so I would know he was not ashamed or trying to hide anything." Hannah was surprised. "Nathan told you. When I was about 8, some kid at school said something about me not looking like Pa. Pa sat me down that night and explained everything. He said you and I were his first blessings and everything good in his life started the day he met you." Henry smiled. "I told him I was glad my first father left, because otherwise I would not have Pa." Hannah hugged her son tightly, her heart full to bursting. As the years continued to pass, the ranch prospered. Nathan's hard work and Mr. Rawlings' trust paid off when the older man, having no children of his own, made Nathan a partner in the Circle R. It was an unexpected gift that secured the family's financial future. "I told you that first day you came to work for me that you were special," Mr. Rawlings said. "You proved me right every day since. This ranch needs someone like you to run it when I am gone, and I cannot think of anyone better." Nathan tried to argue to say it was too much, but Mr. Rawlings was firm. "You earned this, Nathan. And that family of yours is the kind of people this land needs. Good, honest, hard-working folks who understand the value of loyalty and love." When Nathan came home and told Hannah the news, she wept with joy and disbelief. The scared young woman who had stepped off the train in Fort Kearny 11 years ago would never have imagined this life. But here she was, living it. In 1890, Henry announced his intention to marry a local girl named Sarah, the daughter of the town schoolteacher. At 18, he was young, but no younger than his parents had been. The wedding was joyful, held on the ranch with the whole community in attendance. Watching her son marry, Hannah thought about her own wedding 12 years earlier. So much had changed, yet the essential truth remained the same. Love, real love, was worth any risk, any challenge, any judgment from others. As if reading her thoughts, Nathan took her hand. "Remember our wedding," he murmured. "Every detail. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. So would I." Lucy married at 19, and James eventually became a teacher like his mother had always encouraged. Marie showed a talent for music and sang at church every Sunday. The house remained full and lively, even as the children grew and began their own lives. Mr. Rawlings passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1895, leaving the Circle R ranch entirely to Nathan. It was a responsibility Nathan took seriously, but he was ready for it. The ranch thrived under his management, and the Vance name became synonymous with quality cattle and fair dealing throughout Nebraska. On their 20th anniversary, Nathan took Hannah on a trip. They traveled by train to Denver, staying in a fine hotel and eating in restaurants. It was the first time they had been away from the children and the ranch in years, and the luxury felt strange but wonderful. On their last evening, they stood on the hotel balcony watching the sunset paint the Rocky Mountains in shades of pink and gold. "You ever regret it?" Nathan asked suddenly. "Choosing this life instead of the one you might have had?" Hannah looked at him in surprise. What other life? The one where my parents disowned me, where I raised Henry alone and bitter, where I never knew what real love felt like. She shook her head. I regret nothing. Well, perhaps I regret trusting Thomas, but even that led me to you. I just want to make sure you are happy. Nathan Vance, I am the happiest woman alive. I have a husband who loves me, children who bring me joy every day, and a home filled with laughter. What more could I possibly want? He kissed her then, long and deep, the kiss of two people who had chosen each other and continued choosing each other every day. When they separated, both were smiling. 20 more years, he asked. 20 more years and 20 after that, and as many as God gives us. They grew old together in the house by the creek. Their children gave them grandchildren, who ran through the same fields their parents had played in. The Circle R continued to prosper, eventually passing to Henry, who ran it with the same integrity his father had shown. Hannah's hair turned silver, and Nathan's body bore the marks of years of hard work, but their love never diminished. They still sat on the porch on summer evenings, though now they moved slower and their joints ached. They still held hands. They still laughed together. In 1912, Nathan fell ill with pneumonia. At 60 years old, his body could not fight it off. The doctor did what he could, but everyone knew how this would end. The children gathered, and Henry brought his own children to say goodbye to their grandfather. On his last day, Nathan asked for everyone to leave except Hannah. She sat beside the bed, holding his hand as she had so many times before. No regrets, she asked, her voice breaking. Not a single one. His voice was weak but clear. You and Henry were my first blessings. Everything after was just more grace than one man deserved. I love you, Hannah whispered. I love you too, always have, always will. He squeezed her hand with what little strength he had left. You gave me everything, Hannah, a reason to be better, a family, a life worth living. You saved me, she said through her tears. You chose me when nobody else would. Best choice I ever made. He smiled, that same smile that had won her heart so many years ago. 2 blessings, remember? 2 blessings, not one. Those were his last words. Nathan Vance died with his wife's hand in his, a smile on his face, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived and full of love. Hannah lived another 8 years, watching her family continue to grow. She delighted in her great-grandchildren and spent her days sewing quilts for each new baby born. But part of her was always waiting, counting down the days until she could see Nathan again. When she finally passed in her sleep at age 72, her children found her with a peaceful expression, her hand stretched out as if reaching for someone. On her bedside table was the locket Nathan had given her that first Christmas, still containing the photograph of the 3 of them. Young Hannah, baby Henry, and Nathan, all looking at the camera with hope and love shining in their eyes. They buried her next to Nathan on a hill overlooking the ranch. The stone reads simply, Hannah Vance, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother, she chose love. And beside it, Nathan's stone, Nathan Vance, beloved husband, father, and grandfather, he chose them both. Years later, great-grandchildren would play on that hill, and someone would always tell the story. The story of how their great-grandmother arrived in Fort Kearny with nothing but a baby on the way, and how their great-grandfather had said the words that changed everything. I want both. That is 2 blessings, not one. It became family legend, passed down through generations, a reminder that love was not about perfect circumstances or ideal situations. Love was about choice, about seeing blessings where others saw burdens, about building a life together from scratch and holding on through every storm. The house by the creek still stood, refurbished and modernized but essentially the same. The Circle R Ranch continued to operate, now one of the largest and most successful in Nebraska. And every Vance who came after carried the legacy of Hannah and Nathan. That true love meant choosing each other every day, no matter what the world said. In the end, that was all that mattered. Not the judgment of strangers or the opinions of society. Not the mistakes of the past or the fears of the future. Just two people who found each other when they needed it most and built a love that lasted beyond their lifetimes, rippling forward through children and grandchildren and generations yet to come. It was a love story that started with courage and faith, that grew through trials and triumphs, and that ended only when this life ended, continuing on wherever souls went after death. And if there was any justice in the universe, Hannah and Nathan were together still, perhaps sitting on some celestial porch, holding hands and watching their family continue to grow and thrive. Two blessings, not one. That was how it started, and that was how it remained forever and always, a testament to the transformative power of love freely given and gratefully received.